I read 75 books in 2023, so let's rapid review them, I guess, because it's gonna have to be fast. If I give myself 10 seconds per book, how long is this video? I don't want to do mental math. 750 seconds divided by 60. 12 minutes. Okay. I can probably do a little bit longer than 10 seconds. First off, hello, miss y'all. Secondly, everyone tell me you love my haircut because I just got it done. Thirdly, I don't think you've seen my green library wall. It's very fucking cute. So we're talking about my 2023 reads, 75 books. I read a variety of genres. I'm all over the place. Maybe you'll find something you want to read. Maybe you won't. Oh God, Mitch just got home, so I don't want an audience while I'm doing this. Mitch got a new shirt. He's trying it on fashion show. Love it. Cute. Show it off. Work it. I think last year I reviewed them just from worst to best. This year we're gonna do something similar, but we're also going to break it down by genre. So we have literary fiction, contemporary fiction, just like general fiction, I guess. Nonfiction, nonfiction but memoir. And then we have fantasy, sci-fi, horror, mystery, and romance. So, where do we want to start? Let's start with fantasy. We got 17 books in this category. Ranking them from like lowest to best feels rough because I mean someone has to be at the bottom. So my least favorite fantasy read this year was Venko. I've seen it get a lot of love online, and I think maybe in that case it just like didn't work for me personally. In this one, 7 witches need to find these 7 spoons to stop the apocalypse. You know, the world building was really lackluster and I have no understanding of the magic system, and for a book full of witches there was just like really little magic happening. The cast is diverse, which is obviously great, but yeah, it wasn't really for me. Next on the list we have the Blood and Ash series. I read the first 4 and I started the 5th. It started off pretty strong actually for me. I liked Blood and Ash, really liked the second book. 3 started to go downhill, 4 was rough. And I started 5, but I was like, I don't have time for this. I have other books I want to read. I don't know, it's like a fantasy series, it's smutty, it's vampires. The whole story and everything got really like convoluted and super confusing. And yeah, I do like the romance in it. A bunch of people told me I need to read the prequel series, that it would make more sense if I did, and I won't. Next we have Bindle Punk Bruja. I hardly know what happened. I just know it's like flapper era, like in the 20s. There's magic. Just like so little happened. It was like so slow moving. I almost didn't finish it, but I did, but I shouldn't have. There were aspects that I liked, like was it? I hardly know what happened. I don't know. When you read 75 books in a year, you kind of forget things. We'll see how much I remember about any of these books. Next on the list we have Babel. This is a 4 to 5. So like the rest of the books in my fantasy series, I just really liked all of them. So R.F. Kuang wrote the Poppy War series, which was my favorite series that I read last year. So this is like a historical fantasy. It's really interesting, like kind of reimagining like British colonialism in a world with like magic. It explores, you know, topics of like colonialism and imperialism and capitalism. It also has a lot to do with linguistics. The magic system has a lot to do with etymology. Definitely a different flavor from Poppy War. Next we have the Inheritance trilogy by N.K. Jemisin, also an author who has written one of my favorite series, the Broken Earth trilogy. Really enjoyed it. Not as much as Broken Earth, but it was really good. I love N.K. Jemisin's writing. It is so imaginative. It takes me into a new dimension, it feels like. Jemisin creates a mesmerizingly exotic world where fallen gods serve as slaves to the ruling class and murder and ambition go hand in hand. If you like a really imaginative, kind of strange fantasy, look no further. Next we have A Shadow Crown, which is the second book in the Halfling saga by Melissa Blair. This is what I would consider a romantasy. I liked the first book probably better than this one. Not like tons happened, but like a lot of depth to the characters and to the world and plot were developed. Really diverse cast, really interesting characters, good stuff. I feel like I need to be saying less about these books. I'm talking way too much. Okay, next on the list we have 2023's Hot Topic books Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. I would say I liked them. I would say they're kind of romantic-y and not just like strictly fantasy. But I like the main character, I like the romance, I like dragons. So there's plenty of appeal, very like entertaining read. I thought they were good. But I'm also someone who reads with no thoughts, just vibes. The World We Make by N.K. Jemisin. Second book in the Great Cities duology. This is such a weird little series, super interesting, so imaginative, very diverse cast. In the series, New York becomes born. It becomes this entity into itself, and each borough and the city itself are personified by a person, and they kind of like become an avatar for the city. See, like I said, it doesn't make any sense. It's really weird. But I'm just thinking of that meme right now, like nothing humbles you more than trying to explain a fantasy series to somebody who hasn't read it. Yeah, that's where I am right now. Very good, very imaginative. Next we have Mistborn. This is number 3. My first Brandy Sandy. This world building and the magic system were so unique and well thought out and really interesting. It has a very heisty feeling to a kind of like fuck the system, overthrowing the powers that be kind of thing to it. It was just a really fun, really interesting, really well developed read. Okay, second place in the fantasy category is A Day of Fallen Night. This is the prequel to Priory of the Orange Tree, which I read last year and was one of my faves. Just the world building, the characters, magic, the dragons, the politics, the sapphic romance involved. It's just all so good. Don't be intimidated by the length. The margins are really big. And then taking my number 1 spot, I mean, this was a little bit hard to narrow down with these top 3. But taking my number 1 spot is This Is How You Lose the Time War. Really, really weird, but so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Humanity has like diverged into 2 paths, but in both they can time travel, and both sides are fighting each other. The story follows a spy from each, a time traveling spy from each, and they start like leaving each other notes across time, and it's just like so beautiful and really fucking weird, but it's so good. I loved it. That's it for the fantasy genre. I feel like I had the most to say about those. Where do we want to go next? Now let's talk about the romance books I read this year. I only have 5 on this list. Romance is like, I like to dabble in romance. I like it to be part of books that I read, but not necessarily like the thing. Honestly, I don't really remember half of what these books are. So bottom of the list, I gave it a 3 out of 5 Kiss Quotient. Stella Lane thinks math is the only thing that unites the universe. She comes up with algorithms to predict customer purchases, blah, blah, blah. So Stella hires a escort to teach her how to date. But I remember there being things about this that I was just like, made me feel icky. And that's really all I can say about that. Next we have You Make a Fool of Death with Your Beauty. I love the writing. The writing was really beautiful and really well done. The romance itself just kind of gave me the ick because it went very 0 to 100. There wasn't a lot of like space to actually develop the romance, and suddenly they're just like fully obsessed and fully in love, which like I get it, but also like, you know, make me invested in this. And I just like wasn't invested in their romance, so. Okay, next on the list is Love Hypothesis. Can't remember what it's about. Okay, so this one is another woman in STEM, but basically it's a fake dating trope to actually dating trope. And I really enjoyed it. It was, I think, spicy. When did I read this? Oh, in January, a year ago. I can't be trusted to remember a thing. Yeah, basically fake dating trope, I guess. And I enjoyed it. That's all there is to say about that. The next 2 on the list, the top 2, hard to decide between, but I think number 2 is going to go to A Lady for a Duke, which basically turned me off from contemporary romance. Because this one, like, I just need to read more of these. Historical romance, I guess. But this one's specifically fun because the main character is trans. So I love placing this trans character in a historical context and creating a really beautiful love story full of like acceptance and care. It was lovely. I really enjoyed it. Was not smutty. I think there was like a sprinkling, but not very sexy. Top of the romance list for me was Happy Place by Emily Henry. Could be my favorite Emily Henry book I've read so far. This one I really enjoyed because of the like kind of found family aspect of it that was part of the story. It's a bunch of friends who come together for their annual vacation. A couple who has broken up but hasn't told all their friends is forced back together. Really real shit that they have to work through and talk about. It just felt really like real. I really enjoyed Happy Place. That's it for romance. Let's chat mystery. I read 5 mystery books. So bottom of the list, Leave the Lights On. Listen to this audiobook on a road trip with a friend. So you know what? It was good road trip entertainment. It was totally fine. It was just like not a good mystery. It was fine. But not fine. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. Next, Always the First to Die. This one I gave a 3 out of 5. Probably a 2.75 actually is maybe more accurate. I don't know, it wasn't very good. It was fine. Number 3 is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. I read this one pretty recently and I liked it. So basically there are like 7 college students where in the present we're at their 10-year college reunion. 10 years ago, someone killed one of them. So it's kind of like piecing together what actually happened. The narrator is kind of an unreliable narrator who has big gaps in her memory. So you don't really know what the truth is, you know? Yeah, I liked it. Second on the list is The Firekeeper's Daughter. This is like a young adult mystery. Basically in this one, an indigenous teenager witnesses a murder happen. It has to do with drugs and stuff, all of this. There's all sorts of stuff happening in the world around her, and she's just trying to piece everything together, figure out why it happened, what is going on, who's bringing drugs to the community, all this kind of stuff. I really, really enjoyed it. It was very good. Then my favorite mystery read from the year was Mother Thing. This one actually is not a mystery. So never mind. That was my favorite mystery. Firekeeper's Daughter, and we're gonna move Mother Thing. While I have you here, let's talk about horrors. Okay, I have 7 on this list, which surprises me, actually. Bottom of the list for horrors, Patricia Wants to Cuddle. The concept of this one's funny. Some contestants on basically The Bachelor go to this kind of weird remote area for the final 4. They start disappearing. I don't know, but the rest of the horrors I read, apparently I really liked. They're all 4 out of 5 at least. Next we have Dr. Sleep. So this is the sequel to The Shining, which I loved The Shining. So this one is like 30 years later. Basically helps this girl who also has The Shining escape these like people who kill people with The Shining and like suck the steam out of them. Sounds kind of weird, sounds kind of spooky. That's what it is. I liked it. Then we have Tender is the Flesh, which is a fucked up book. Okay, let me just start with that. That was the first book I read last year. It's messed up. There's a virus that has killed all of the animals in the world. And so people eat people and farm people. And it's quite graphic, quite horrifying. You know what? If you want to read something that's really messed up, it's good. You know, it just kind of like explores the lengths that we will go to as humanity to survive, the pain we will inflict on others, and how easily we become desensitized to things that are super horrifying. Then I have Lapvona, which is my second Otessa Moshfegh book. I didn't like My Year of Rest and Relaxation, but I did really like this one. It like follows this kid who lives outside of this small like feudal town, and the town starts starving and weird shit happens. I don't know, it was odd. Okay, now we're at my top 3. So number 3 is Bad Cree. This person starts having kind of spooky, weird dreams that involve her sister who has passed, just make her really unsettled. And so she goes back home to stay with family. Elements of horror and magical realism stuff. And then there's like the beautiful support that she gets from her family to like heal from this tragedy that happened in their family. Loved it. Then we have Chlorine, which is a super odd, all of these are weird. I don't know, like I'm calling them all weird. That's what they are. A queer coming of age story. I listened to this one on audiobook and it was like, the narration was so good. It made the whole story feel so much more like alive and creepy. This teenager who's a swimmer is like convinced that she is destined to be a mermaid. Goes to great lengths to make that a reality in her life. Interesting, weird, loved it, very good. And then at the top of the horror list, we have Mother Thing. There are a lot of triggering topics, just by the way. It starts in the hospital where this person's mother-in-law who she's living with has just died by suicide. And then her husband starts to think that he is being visited by his mom in their basement. And it just kind of chronicles a weird descent into madness. The writing was just so good. I love the writing. If you're into weird shit, you'll like some of these books. If you don't like weird shit, don't read these. Let's talk about the 7 books I classified as sci-fi. Bottom of the list is Our Missing Hearts. This is one of those that I think was just like not really for me. It's kind of dystopian. This boy who has lost his mom because of basically racism against Asian people in America starts to find clues to where his mom might be and goes out looking for her. Just moved really slow. I don't know. One of those that I listened to on audiobook that just didn't work for me on audiobook. Maybe would have worked better if I had read the physical version of it. Next we have Upgrade by Blake Crouch. He has written some of my favorite sci-fi books in the past, specifically Dark Matter, very good. And this one was like not my favorite of his that I've read. They are genome hacking to make superhumans. It's like kind of an action, kind of sci-fi. Yeah, like it was all right. I don't know, there's not that much to say about it. This is, I guess, technically kind of in my top 3. One of the ones ahead is a series, so top 3, I guess. This is Fractal Noise. I really enjoy Christopher's writing. He read the Aragon series and To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, which I loved last year. And this returns to the world of To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. It's a like prequel story, totally different cast of characters. A spaceship that's out to, I don't know, harvest things from another system stumbles upon a giant hole in a planet that looks made by aliens. And so they are obligated to go check it out and explore this giant hole. I liked it, it was good. Okay, in second place is the Lilith's Brood or Xenogenesis series by Octavia Butler. The first book definitely hit the hardest for me. Like 200 years ago or something like that, humans have wiped themselves out through a global war, and aliens came and picked up some survivors and are now crossbreeding with them. It's super strange, super weird. And then they return to Earth and try to basically recolonize Earth with these like alien human hybrids. I really enjoyed these. And then top of my sci-fi reads is Chain Gang All-Stars. This is a like dystopian read where basically the Roman gladiator system is reimagined in like modern society, I guess. It follows a bunch of different characters. It's very interesting. There's sapphic romance. I don't know, it's just really, really, really well done. I actually listened to the audiobook version of it and loved the audiobook. So very good. Definitely one of my favorites of the whole year. Okay, we're finishing off all of the fiction with just kind of general fiction, literary fiction, contemporary stuff. Bottom of the list with a 3 out of 5 was Homebodies. A person working in the magazines, writing, publishing industry, loses their job due to racism and goes back to their hometown to kind of work through their shit. I just had troubles with the main character not communicating with their partner who they left behind, not being honest with the people in their life. I just kind of had trouble with the actions that the main character took and the way that it didn't really seem like they learned their lesson by the end. Next on the list, we have Sex and Rage. Followed a person who is an artist, feels aimless, directionless, gets into drugs and alcohol, is just trying to find her way. And I think it's like the 70s or the 80s or something. It was decent, fine. Sirens and Muses is like what is this one? Sirens and Muses. 4 artists are drawn into a web of rivalry and desire at an elite art school and on the streets of New York. With a canny, critical eye, Sirens and Muses overturns notions of class, money, art, youth, and a generation's fight to own their future. I've reviewed too many books now, I don't care anymore. Then The Idiot. Yeah, this one is weird because the narrator is very like dry with her humor. The writing is very wandering. The narrator is in university and develops this strange kind of online email correspondent romance with this very unavailable man. Yeah, decent. Okay, we're getting into the 4-star reads. 4 and up. So we have Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. Set in the contemporary Paris of American expatriates, liaisons, and violence, a young man finds himself caught between desire and conventional morality. Basically, this dude kind of is engaged to a woman and finds himself in kind of a gay romance in Paris. And it's kind of messy and tragic and chaotic. I loved James's writing. Very good. Then I have Freshwater, which was a really interesting read. I almost feel like this could be classified as a horror because it feels very like dark and messy. Ada, the main character, experiences a traumatic assault and as a result experiences this like splintering of herself into multiple selves who have their own like personalities and come forward and take control. The writing is very good. Is fiction, but kind of reflects the author's experience of this with themselves. Then we have Big Swiss, which is just like a chaotic, sapphic, I don't know what, mess. I listened to this one on audiobook, which I really enjoyed. This transcriptionist is working for a sex therapist in this small town, becomes really intrigued by one of the clients of the sex therapist, and ends up meeting her in real life, lies about who she is, lies about everything that she knows about her, and they develop this like love affair. Yeah, messy and chaotic and very interesting. I enjoyed it. Next on the list, I have Luster. In this one, a young woman finds herself in a relationship with a married man who's exploring non-monogamy. It includes really interesting like sexual and then also racial conversations and dynamics. It's really messy because she ends up living with his family for a bit. All sorts of odd relationship dynamics are going on here. Yeah, I don't know, it was really interesting. I enjoyed it. Now we've reached the top 3 of our general literary fiction. In number 3, I have Fight Night by Miriam Toews. This one's written from this perspective of 9-year-old Swiv, who comes from a Mennonite family. There's a connection to that I have. I come from a Mennonite family, so there's a lot of like stuff here that feels familiar to me. And her mom's working, so she's being taken care of by her hilarious, very witty grandma. They get into all sorts of misadventures, and the like narration by this 9-year-old is so funny and quirky. It tells a story of really like closely knit family unit of women, and it's just like really beautiful. Loved it. Number 2 in this category goes to Old Enough. Coming of age, bisexual in university. She's discovering who she is. She's exploring her sexuality. There are elements of romance, just a lot of like self-discovery. It's very funny, and then it also deals with like really serious things like being a survivor of assault, how to let go and forgive past versions of yourself and come into who you are now. There's just like so much tenderness and grace. I just really loved it, really enjoyed it. And then my number 1 from this category this year, I take out a book and then they tumble. Anyway, in some ways, some people classify it as romance. To me, that doesn't feel right. But anyways, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow devastated me. Here's a photo of me crying reading it. If you've read this, you know the chapter. So this one follows 2 friends who meet in college and start developing video games together. They have varying levels of success. It chronicles the messy relationship dynamics that they have over the years, from really good to really bad. I loved it. I loved it. That concludes all of the fiction reads. Quick break, outfit change, day change. Wow, it's like I never left. Let's chat all of the nonfiction that I read last year. Let's start with the 6 memoirs I read. This pains me a little bit, but Page Boy was probably my least favorite memoir that I read last year. I love the cover and the title and the story itself. I had problems with some of the writing style. It's very non-linear in a way that was like kind of hard to follow. It was hard to pinpoint like where in Eliot's experience with his gender we were. So some of this was just like maybe personal preference. All that being said, this is an important memoir, and I think it's incredible to have such high visibility trans experiences in popular culture and media. I love that so many people picked this up and read it last year. Next on this is Wayward. This I gave a 4 out of 5, so like the memoirs were good. This is a memoir of spiritual warfare and sexual purity. So if you know me and my history at all, I grew up in the church and in purity culture, so I really related to a lot of parts of Alice's experience. Parts I didn't relate to, but it was really validating to hear about someone who had like a more intense purity culture experience than I did. Loved it, was really good. But then I have A History of My Brief Body, which is a short little guy, but it is just so beautifully written, so lyrical, just like stunning. It's a collection of like essays and poetry that talk about queerness and indigeneity and colonial violence and writing and love. It's a beautiful one. So we're in the top 3 of memoirs now. Number 3, we have Body Work This is kind of a mixture of memoir and like writing instruction. The subtitle is The Radical Power of Personal Narrative. So Melissa writes about writing memoir. The like advice for writing your own memoir I found really impactful and beautiful, and I really enjoyed it. Also a shorty. So next on the list is Greedy, Notes from a Bisexual Who Wants Too Much. I just loved this collection of essays and stuff from a fellow bisexual. It's really funny, it's really honest. Yeah, loved it, thought it was great. My top memoir in the list was In the Dream House, probably one of my favorite memoirs I've read of all time. It was like, the writing is so like heartbreaking and absolutely gorgeous. It is like poetic and lyrical and really heartbreaking because it has to do with her experience with abuse in a queer relationship. So it's definitely like not a fun, light, easy read. There's a lot of pain in it. At the same time, it is a beautiful work of art. That concludes the memoirs. And so last but not least, we're moving on to general nonfiction, which I didn't really know how to split all of this up into like smaller categories. So I have a big beastie list of 18. Big bottom of the list, we have The Baby Matrix. Why freeing our minds from outmoded thinking about parenthood and reproduction will create a better world. I saw someone read an excerpt from this on TikTok, and I was like, oh, I need to read that. As a child-free and intending to be child-free in the future person. But woof, this was rough. There's just a lot of like, I would say, problematic ideas in this book. What were some of the things? Let's see. I wrote my hate comments in the margins. She thinks that the government should get involved in determining who is allowed to become a parent. Like, you have to pass a test in order to like qualify, or you'll get penalized in some way. One punitive measure that could be taken with extremely unfit parents would be to require long-term birth control. Girl, yeah, this was a mess. Some of her thoughts about like, you know, encouraging people to really think about having kids or not and what the best options are for them. All that's good. But like, yeah, the rest of the book, I was just like, whoa, okay. Anyway, what a mess. Okay, next I have Spineless. What's the subtitle of this? The Art of Growing a Backbone or something? It was about jellyfish and like only about jellyfish, and kind of was a bit of a memoir about this person's experience becoming fascinated with jellyfish. But I thought it was gonna, you know, have some kind of like metaphor to it. You know, it's like the art of growing a backbone. I don't know, like, is there something to learn from jellyfish? And like, it didn't really feel like there was. But it was still interesting. I learned a lot about jellyfish. I just like more than I need to know, actually. Anyway, yeah, it was fine. I also read Fearing the Black Body, The Racial Origins of Fat Phobia. This one's like a dense read, and it covers a lot of ground, like a very large time frame. So I think it was a little bit ambitious with that. I feel like I learned about the history of fat phobia, like the Protestant origins, the patriarchal origins, and some of the racial origins. It just like felt, again, like casting such a wide net and didn't go like into the specifics of everything. I also read Rest is Resistance, which I thought was a good book. It's definitely written like for people who are marginalized to dig into rest as a form of resistance. So yeah, it's good. It just wasn't like totally for me, and that's okay. Next we have This Is Your Mind on Plants, where Michael Pollan talks about 3 like plant drugs: opium, caffeine, and mescaline. It's just interesting to read about his experimentations with these mind-altering drugs. Then we have Unsettling Truths, the ongoing dehumanizing legacy of the doctrine of discovery. This was a pretty dense read as well. It's pretty intense and heady, but it really dives deep into the ways that the church specifically has participated in colonial violence through the doctrine of discovery, through the claiming of North America for God. It was good. Intense. Next on the list, The Intersectional Environmentalist, How to Dismantle Systems of Oppression for People and Planet, to Protect People and Planet. First of all, it's a beautiful book. Like, look, gorge. The design, love. Great intro guide to the intersections of environmentalism with racism specifically, and privilege and class. I feel like if you've done your own like reading in other ways about that, it might be too intro level, but otherwise I think it's really good, and it's a great resource to kind of start dipping your toes in there. Then I have Under the Banner of Heaven, all about fundamentalist sect of the Church of Latter-day Saints. The journalism and the research and all of that was fascinating. I really enjoyed reading it. Next, I have The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible. This book is a little bit hit and miss for me. There were sections of it that didn't super touch me, but there were other parts that like really spoke to me, felt representative of the way that I want to go about living my life and viewing the world around me. The main point of the book is leaving the like ideology of like separation and embodying the story of like interbeing and interconnectedness with the world around us. I also read All About Love. Excellent, just a collection of essays exploring different avenues and aspects of love. Her ideas are so expansive and beautiful and just like makes the web of love feel wide. You know? Loved it. Decolonizing Wellness, a QT BIPOC-centered guide to escape the diet trap, heal your self-image, and achieve body liberation. This is a great resource. I think there's a lot of wellness that is obviously not centered around the experience of queer people and people of color. And this book is specifically about wellness for the marginalized and the way that things like racism and homophobia and fat phobia negatively impact our access to wellness and our ability to be well. So yeah, a great accessible read. Then we have Sister Outsider. I really loved this read. It's a collection of essays exploring like feminism and racism, the intersections of the two, and much more. I specifically appreciated the large chunks of the book that, you know, made me check my like white feminism. Then I have Getting to Center, Pathways to Finding Yourself Within the Great Unknown. This is just a kind of book that really speaks to my soul as a person who explores a lot of creativity, enjoys writing, and also really values the like spiritual aspect of myself and needs that push to reconnect with that side of myself sometimes. Yeah, really loved this book. Then I have Care Work, Dreaming Disability Justice. This is an excellent read just about the politics of disability and like chronic illness. It is about radical love and creating systems in our communities that support everybody, liberate everybody where nobody is left behind. Excellent, beautiful book. We have reached the top 3 of my nonfiction list. These are hard ones for me to put in order. But in number 3, I'm putting All the Gold Stars, Reimagining Ambition and the Ways We Strive. I listened to this as an audiobook and it was just like a balm to my soul. It just like examined and dismantled the way that we look at ambition and success and what those things mean to us, how to redefine them for ourselves, and create purpose in our lives that is unique to us. I like this in the overview. All the Gold Stars provides ways for us to reject our current reality and reconceive ambition as a more collective, imaginative, and rooted in caring for ourselves and each other. Love that. It was great. In the second spot, I'm gonna put 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. This sounds like a very, I don't know, like step-by-step guide to time management, but it's a lot more like spiritual in a way that I really loved. It talks a lot about like embracing our limited time, where we put our attention, being astonished by just existing, just becoming more in awe with life, with being, with having access to this time at all. I love it. I loved it. It was great. Again, hard to pick between the last one and this one. So my top read in nonfiction was Refusing Compulsory Sexuality, a Black Asexual Lens on Our Sex-Obsessed Culture. This was just an excellent deep dive into our culture's obsession with sexuality. A lot of information about what asexuality is and isn't. There's like so many misconceptions about it in the world. It really takes a look at anti-Blackness and white supremacy, patriarchy and heteronormativity and capitalism. Looks at it all from this like Black asexual lens. So yeah, very good book, very good. Oh my God, I made it. Through all 75 books. So hopefully that helped you pick some of your reads for 2024. For every book I read, I think I add like 3 to my TBR. All right, we're gonna wrap that up because I've been talking for too long. And yeah, I'm excited to jump back into some vlogs as well, so stay tuned for those. All right, bye.